Hello everybody, it's Ben and I'm back once again with some more single issue reviews for you guys. Today I'll be taking a look at the Shadow Strikes issues 12 through 15. Issues 12 through 14 were published from September through to December of 1990. Once again we have Gerard Jones on the writing, Eduardo Barreto on the artwork, and we also have the original series covers which were all done by Eduardo Barreto as well. Once again we have Anthony Tollin on board as the regular series colorist, and on issue 12 we have Hawkeye Workman on the lettering. So the story starts out and we meet a young socialite couple of Tad Romanowski and Brenda Shield. Now Tad Romanowski is the son of a wealthy slaughterhouse and sausage factory producer, and unfortunately for Tad, he does have a weakness which the mobsters of the Chicago Mafia exploit to their advantage, and that is Tad has a weakness for gambling, and from playing a game of seven, which is where you throw the two dice together to make up the number 7, or double sevens I should say. He runs up a debt to the Chicago Mafia of $1 million. So unfortunately for Tad, his relationship with Brenda breaks down, and especially when they find out, or once the socialites of Chicago find out that Tad's run up a debt of $1 million to the Chicago Mafia. And here we have the introduction of Margot Lane and Inspector Joseph Cardona, who are both on a flight into Chicago from orders from the Shadow, as you can see there. And we also find out that Margot and Brenda Shield actually knew one another from times gone by, and so the two sort of rekindle their friendship, if you will, throughout this 4-part story arc. We also had the introduction of some real-life Chicago mobsters, particularly Frank Nitti and Jack Greasy Thumb Guzik. And we also had the introduction of the fictional mobster as well, of Anthony Sabaro. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Sbarbarro, however you choose to pronounce that. And we have some friction taking place between Jack Guzik and Frank Nitti and Antonio Sabaro, in that Guzik wants to take the Chicago Mafia into a more legitimate style of enterprise, whereas both Nitti and Sabaro both want to keep the organization well founded within its criminal roots. And we also have the introduction of Chip Heck, who is a reporter for the Chicago News, who also plays a key role in the narration of the story as the series goes on through issues 13 through 15. And here we see the reaction of Tad's father when he tells him that he's run up a debt of $1 million to the Chicago Mafia. And here we see a last really cool one-page spread of the Shadow as drawn by Eduardo Barreto. And this also serves as the Shadow's introduction in this part of the story. We then move on to issue number 13, which has another of my two favourite original series covers from this bunch by Eduardo Barreto, of the Shadow wielding a Thompson submachine gun, with the cover to issue number 12 also being my other firm favourite as well. And the story picks up right after the events of the previous issue. We have John Workman on the lettering, and as I said, Gerard Jones on the writing, Eduardo Barreto on the artwork, and Anthony Tollin, who all do the writing and the artwork and the colouring respectively on these issues. In the opening pages we see Anthony Sabaro do something to this lady that I'm morally opposed to, and when I was reading this I wanted the Shadow to deal out his own brand of justice to this guy, which I'm happy to say he does get his comeuppance in the last part of the story arc. I think that during this 4-part story arc that Gerard Jones's voice for the Shadow really comes out. Not that he doesn't have a great voice for the Shadow, and as well as a supporting cast as well, but I just think that during this story arc, I think that the You can really more greatly appreciate the voice that he has for the character of the Shadow, which is also complemented by some, again, fantastic artwork and colouring done by Eduardo Barreto and Anthony Tollin. And here we see that the friction between both Nitti and Sabaro and Jack Guzik is just about coming to a boiling point, so to speak. As I said, you know, it's kind of like the new guard versus the old guard, so to speak, for these Chicago town mobsters. And during the final pages of this issue, once again we have the Shadow putting his plan into action in order to instigate an internal mafia war between the rival factions of Greasy Thumb Guzik and Frank Nitti and Anthony Sabaro. And we also see that Inspector Joseph Cardona also plays a key role in the beginnings of this internal mob war along with the Shadow. We then move into issue number 14 with another really cool original series cover done by Eduardo Barreto, which picks up again right after the events of the previous issue. Here's a really cool double page spread of the Shadow and his mirthless laugh. Let me just see if I can zoom out just a little bit. As you can see there, that's a really cool double page spread. Just bear with me a minute while I organize my notes. We also have the introduction of Chip Heck's narration to the story as well, taking centerfold in this particular issue, and in issue 15 as well. We also have the introduction of the character of Lamont Cranston into this storyline, and there's a great scene between both him and Anthony Sabaro in the men's room, where he introduces himself just before going in to Greasy Thumb Guzik, and Sabaro says to him, "You may know Mr. Guzik, but I don't know who you are." And Lamont actually starts reeling off names and dates of men who have died in Chicago, and it's hinted at that maybe Sabaro actually played a hand in the deaths of all these men. And as you can see from the artwork by Eduardo Barreto and the colouring by Anthony Tollin, this leaves Sabaro very clearly enraged. And there's a great line from Lamont just as he's leaving the men's room, and he says to Sabaro, "You may want to wipe your shoes before you leave," which I thought was a great line of dialogue from Lamont Cranston on the part of Gerard Jones. We also have another really interesting conversation which takes place between the Shadow and Joe Cardona, where the Shadow is revealing his plan to Cardona, but unfortunately, as Cardona is an officer of the law and is a cop, he is not so much opposed to helping the Shadow and dealing with criminals, but the way in which the Shadow goes about it and the Shadow's methods is what puts these two into conflict. And eventually Joe says, "If you want to put this plan into action, go ahead, but count me out." And the Shadow basically says to Joe, "That's fine, I'll just carry on without you anyway," which the Shadow actually does. And here we see another really cool example of the Shadow putting his plan into action, and once again with another really cool one-page spread of the Shadow stood atop a gargoyle, and once again the mirthless laugh and a thunderstorm reverberating through the night, which I thought was a great one-page spread. And on the final page we have the Shadow putting in a call to Burbank, who functions as the communications guy between the Shadow and his agents and vice versa, where he basically tells Burbank, "Send everyone to Chicago armed and ready for war," which leaves on a great cliffhanger to issue number 14. And we then move into the final issue of this 4-part story arc with issue number 15, with once again another really cool original series cover done by Eduardo Barreto, which picks up right after the events of the previous issue. And here we see there's some really cool scenes between the Shadow and his agents, where he's basically giving the battle speech to the troops, if you will, about his plans for this elaborate plot that he has to deal with some major players within the Chicago Mafia. We also have the introduction of Claude Fellows and Cliff Marsland, who we've seen for the first time in this series. We also have some other guest appearances from Harry Vincent and Mo Shrevnitz, or Shrevey as they call him. And once again we have Inspector Joseph Cardona thrust back into this elaborate plan of the Shadows. We also have Tad Romanowski and Brenda Shield rekindling their relationship and putting their engagement back on after the events of the previous issues. Here we see some great scenes and some great firefights and action between the Shadow and his agents and the Chicago Mafia. And here we see another really cool double-page spread of fantastic art by Eduardo Barreto, complemented immensely by the equally fantastic colouring of Anthony Tollin. And I'll just let the camera focus on that for a few more seconds, which I just think is a really cool double-page spread. So there's a lot of great action scenes towards the end of this story arc and the end of this issue. And there's another great shadow scene in here, which I'll get to in just a second. And it's another really cool one-page spread of Eduardo Barreto's artwork, where he's giving both Frank Nitti and Greasy Thumb Guzik an ultimatum, where he says, either you serve my ends and you live, or you don't serve my ends and you die. And he's doing this while holding one of his each signature dual 45 caliber pistols to each of the heads of the mobsters, and he's also giving them this speech and this ultimatum while they're both under the influence of the fire opal or the durasol, which I thought was a really great shadow scene on the part of Gerard Jones and Eduardo Barreto and Anthony Tollin. Overall, if I had to give this 4-part story arc from issues 12 through 15 of the Shadow Strikes a rating, I give it a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. Once again, Gerard Jones and Eduardo Barreto are doing a fantastic job on the writing and the artwork. I was informed by one of the members of the Pulp Heroes Facebook group that unfortunately Eduardo Barreto passed away back in 2011, which is unfortunate, but it's really nice to see this gentleman's artwork, particularly in this series. So unfortunately I can't remember the name of the person who informed me of this information, but I'll put an annotation in as to who they are once this video is uploaded. Once again, Anthony Tollin is doing a stellar job on the colouring, and like I said, this is a great 4-part story arc with a lot of action. There's a lot of great shadow moments, there's a lot of great just sort of shadow fan geek out moments, like I said, particularly with this one-page spread of the shadow giving both Frank Nitti and Jack Guzik the ultimatum. As I said, 5 out of 5 for the Shadow Strikes issues 12 through 15. I really enjoyed it and I highly recommend it. And I'll just show you the original series covers once again before I wrap up this video. So here we see the covers to issues 14 and issues 15. Just bear with me while I get them in frame. If I zoom out just a little, as you can see, there's the covers to issues 14 and issues 15. Actually, if I move them over just a bit, they're actually in center with the camera where it's actually focusing. As you can see, there's issues 14 and 15. And finally, we have issues 12 and issues 13. Once again, let me just get these in focus. As you can see, there. There we are. So there's the original series covers, once again done by Eduardo Barreto, to issues 12 and 13 of The Shadow Strikes. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Didn't like it, thumbs it down. But as I always say, if you thumbs down the video, please feel free to tell me why in the comment section, or send me a private message. If you're new to my channel, please feel free to subscribe. And as always, feel free to check out the links in the description to the Shadow Knows Facebook page, the Pulp Heroes and Pulp Talk Facebook page, or pages as well. If you have a Twitter account, please feel free to follow me at Gambit896, which again there'll be a link to in the description. And if you have a Google Plus account, please feel free to add me on Google Plus as well. Thank you everybody for watching, and until next time, this is Gambit896 signing off, and I'll see you guys next time.